morning, everyone, and welcome back to Grindhouse, where we drink coffee and talk about movies. My name is Leah Diana, and with my boyfriend and co-host, Shawn Tetrault, we will be winding back the reel, once again, to 1992. The century-old vampire Count Dracula comes to England to seduce Jonathan Harker's fiancée, Mina Murray, and inflict havoc in a foreign land, in Bram Stoker's Dracula. Let's get into it.
Spread the word, you dirty cocksuckers. Tell all your grave robbing friends I want them out of the city now!
The nightmare of insane murder.
From the depths of hell.
From the angel of death. Only at the Grindhouse.
Why did we choose Bram Stoker's Dracula?
I love Gary Oldman. I love this story. I love how Keanu Reeves just gets shafted the whole fucking movie.
Oh.
And Anthony Hopkins and his bad accent is beautiful.
Well, this week we watched Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
This movie came out in 1992, directed by the infamous Francis Ford Coppola.
Ooh.
Starring Gary Oldman, Winona Ryder, Sir Anthony Hopkins, and Keanu Reeves. This movie was made on a budget of $40 million, making it our biggest budget film that we've covered so far.
Ooh.
And grossed at the box office over $215 million.
So it might have been a success.
This was a monumental success.
You can see why.
Especially for the time. And much like Dracula is fueled by the lifeblood of his victims. Tonight we are also fueled, but not by coffee.
Not by coffee.
Since we just decided to film this on the same night as a couple other videos and episodes, we decided to switch over to tea.
Mm-hmm.
And this tea comes to us from Top of the Morning, which is a brand owned and operated by a fellow YouTuber, content creator.
Jacksepticeye.
This flavor is Orange Blossom Oolong Tea, which is apparently a leaf soup for those on the road to inner peace.
I love it. Leaf soup.
Which nobody in this film found themselves on that road.
No, there's no inner peace. Maybe after Lucy was dead, she found inner peace.
Let's try this.
It's going to be very hot, so. It's very nice.
That's not bad.
No.
I like it.
And to show my dedication, and I've been watching Jacksepticeye or Shawn McLaughlin for so long, I had to buy the black mug, because in this house, Matte Black rules.
Matte Black everything.
Matte Black everything.
Courtesy of Marquez Brownlee.
God damn you, Marquez! But yeah, we haven't bought the coffee from him yet. Mainly because I drink more tea. We have a lot of tea in this house. So much tea. But this is nice and smooth. It is caffeinated.
Hits the spot.
Yeah, it's cold in here. I'm cold. We turned the heat off because I made banana bread, so we had the oven on, so it got too hot. It's a very small apartment, so either it's fucking freezing or it's fucking hot. There is no middle ground. So this is nice. The hot tea is very nice because the coffee gets cold fast. You notice that?
Coffee does it cools down extremely quick.
It
For
does.
some reason,
this
tea
stays
doesn't.
super hot for a while, so I'm okay with it. All right.
All right.
Get into it. Woo!
So this film, as you might expect, follows the story, as many know it, of Count Dracula.
Yep.
And his constant pursuer, Van Helsing. You have all of your trademark characters throughout this film. You have Abraham Van Helsing, Count Dracula,
Jonathan
Harkness,
Mina Murray, and Lucy Westenra. Westenra.
Yes.
Those are very traditional characters, kind of.
Even Renfield is worked in.
I only know Renfield. I know he's part of the everything, but you remember Leslie Nielsen put out a comedy Dracula, and all I remember is him
Dracula
dying.
Dead and Loving It.
Yes, when he dying as a bat, he goes, "Renfield, you asshole!" My brother and I to this day still say that to each other. Oh God, this was my pick because one, I wanted to do Interview with the Vampire. But unfortunately, we don't own a copy of Interview with the Vampire, and it is not on streaming services right now. So we have to hunt down a copy.
We will find one.
I'm sad because I recently watched it, but I watched it for free on YouTube.
Hey.
So it was not good.
No.
But this one is definitely okay. I yelled at you for watching Sleepwalkers as a kid. I watched this probably as a young adult. And, like, Lucy's having full-on sex with Dracula at one point. And her tits are just out half the movie, so.
Yeah, this, Coppola's take on the Dracula story, he definitely bumps up the, enhances that alluring sexual nature
Oh my God,
vampires.
there's so much. Like, I get that vampires are mysterious and sexy, and, like, if you notice throughout this movie, I feel like both Interview with the Vampire, Queen of the Damned, and the Underworld series takes bits and pieces from this. Like, it's very surprising how much, like, I'm watching this and I'm going, oh, there's like little thing. And Interview was only like 2 or 3 years after, but I think Queen of the Damned was like in the 2000s. Like early 2000s, so there was a lot pulled from this. I love it because it's a very, like, I want to say, I don't know if it follows the book loosely or very closely, but it does do what the book is. The book is a series of diary entries. I've never read the book. I have it, like I said last time. I've always wanted to read it. It's like this big. That's all of his works, but it's a big commitment. And I haven't had that much time to commit to a book. But I think this one is so sweet the way they do it.
So this film, all right, I want to start off kind of by saying that the last time I watched this film, which wasn't that long ago, I didn't enjoy it.
Really?
The last time. I don't know, something about it just didn't hit right. I think like something about the performances just fell flat. Watching it this time, surprisingly, I gained a new appreciation.
Okay.
This time to me, the story presented very much like a stage play.
Yeah, okay.
The film is presented in a very theatrical format. The performances are much more embellished, as if you were
over the top.
Yeah, as if you were performing to an audience.
You have to project to the back of the room, and that's like I feel their performances were doing exactly that.
This is a very, like, right from the opening moments, you're introduced to a narrative by striking visuals.
Yes.
It's a very visual experience. Accompanied, of course, by Van Helsing's narration.
Not to you, Sir Anthony Hopkins. Love you. Your accent was terrible.
He was still badass.
It was still badass.
I started to read a lot more into visual choices in this movie this time. The first one that hit me being the Dracula's armor in
Looks
the beginning.
like muscles.
It's very much designed to look like muscle, which to me
showed his brute strength as a commander of that army.
See, I didn't even read that.
No?
Like, it makes a lot of sense now that you say it, but my interpretation of that was that it's designed to look that way so that when he denounces God for taking away his love and essentially gives himself to the darkness, he's breaking free of his mortal shell.
Ooh, okay.
And becoming something far more powerful.
What, like almost the Antichrist at that point.
In a way,
yeah.
Yes.
I watched the costuming and the color this time. I really wanted to pay attention to it to the point where if someone was happy and full of light, they had bright, beautiful colors. Blues and pinks and pastels. But as they turned to the darker side, they went darker, more seductive colors. And at one point, I noticed that Mina was the only one with a rich color on the streets of London. Everyone else was gray. And I was like, ooh. So I was like, are we just seeing this through Dracula's eyes? Or are we seeing this as an observer outside? Like she's the only beautiful thing to him anymore.
That's exactly how I interpreted that. Like, we are witnessing that entire series of moments through Dracula's perspective. And, like, she is the focus of his desire. And, like, your eye should be drawn solely to her. And everyone else should fade into obscurity.
Like, even his brides, they were white, they were pale, they were ghostly. Like, the bedding that they were on in that scene with Jonathan was bright, was colorful, but they were not bright and colorful. They were pale, just undistinguishable to the background.
Because all life has been drained from them.
From them, yep. And it's one of those things where you see Lucy and she has that fire red hair and that bright, beautiful skin and that beautiful white purple gown right from the get-go. And I'm like, oh, but near the end, like, she's wearing white again, but she herself is drained completely of the color. And I'm like, the colors that he chose are beautiful, are seductive themselves and equal to that of the tone of the movie, which I think is Beautiful. Beautiful.
Small flaw I found just in the early moments before we get too far from it. Right when Dracula comes in and sees it's Winona's body splayed out.
Elizabetha.
Her eyes are moving.
Are they?
Yes.
And that's not a 4K release, is it? That's just a normal release on Netflix, right?
I think that's upscaled.
I mean,
Like at least 2K.
again, sort of like we said in Sleepwalkers, they didn't expect 4 or 8K to
No.
come out. So you're going to see the flaws that the director was like, yeah, whatever.
It's a super small flaw, but I just happened to catch it. So I had
Like,
to
hey,
note
Winona,
it.
your eyes are fluttery. Stop it.
And Anthony Hopkins also plays the priest at the beginning.
Yes, he does.
Which
I
was cool.
noticed that. I was like, oh, maybe Van Helsing's been chasing him all his life because, you know, an ancestor of Van Helsing was the one who witnessed him becoming this darkness, this thing.
Yeah.
Which is like, ooh, give me a little chill.
I definitely think this is a movie that's like, it's a visual experience. You're meant to pay attention to everything. Like nothing is meant to be spoon-fed to you.
One viewing's not enough. I've
No.
watched this many times and I still find things to pay attention to.
I will still say that some of the performances in this film are great. Others suffer a bit.
Can I tell you who I think does the worst? Keanu Reeves.
That is my biggest note.
He's young. He's young in this film.
He's very young. He's still quite inexperienced. And at very small moments, I could see and hear bits of Ted bleeding through.
I saw bits of Neo bleeding through. That that brooding kind of performance that Neo is and that will be in 8 years from this
Yeah.
time. But like I also see like that guy too, and it's like like now, like you look at him as John Wick. Ooh, no, he gives me chills as John Wick. As Jonathan Harker, I'm like, oh, look how cute he is. He's probably best friends with Nick Cage, and he's like, Uncle, Francis, can my friend have a part, please? I'm gonna get shot for that, but whatever. Like, that performance suffers. Now, Winona Ryder, oh, shit. I love her performance. And she's a young actress, too. Like, she just did Edward Scissorhands. Like, that's still in that wheelhouse, that realm. And she's an amazing actress. To this day, the most recent thing I've seen of hers is Stranger Things. Still think she gives a great performance. Fun fact, Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder joined forces again prior to COVID for another movie. I have to find it. It was a very recent movie, but they were in it together, and I laughed when I saw the preview for this movie because I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this like a reunion?
I feel like I remember this.
Oh, God. Destination Wedding.
Oh, yeah. All
and
right.
I laughed because it's Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder, two people that don't like each other going to a destination wedding and they have to get along. It's a romantic comedy drama. And when I first saw the preview of it, it's Keanu doing the John Wick, like, hey, yup, bye, that kind of thing. And it's Winona being like high strung and like like that. And I'm like, complete opposites from this when they were younger or kids doing a part like almost 20 something years later.
Yeah.
Like I died laughing when I saw the preview for that. I'm like, I gotta watch that. Still haven't. The thing's been out for almost 4 years. Still haven't watched it.
Surprisingly, I think Winona Ryder did a pretty solid job in
She
this
did.
movie.
I think so.
Especially like once she like started to succumb to Dracula's influence.
She's good at like drama stuff. Like
Yeah.
her being sweet and innocent. She's good at it, but I still think like she's coming off the coattails of Edward Scissorhands. She did another big part When was the Heathers around here too? Because the Heathers is a
Prior.
remarkable fucking movie.
I think it was prior.
This was Heathers is the 80s,
so.
right?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I watched that movie. We got to watch it on the podcast. I don't want to say much, but I watched it for the first time and I went, "What is this?" I loved it, but I hated it. But let's get back to Dracula.
You know who kind of stole this movie for me? Outside of the obvious, like Anthony Hopkins literally...
He steals everything.
He steps into a scene and he immediately takes command.
And you're like, oh, here we go.
But...
the fucking knighted actor is going to do great, you know?
Lucy.
Lucy is so good.
Her fucking performance throughout every one of those little sequences is strong. It's very, very strong.
Girl Be Damned did not care if she was fully clothed or not either. She went for it. She was like, all right, what do I need to do? All right, go. She threw herself into those scenes, going from innocent, sweet to succumbing to this darkness inside of her. It was incredible. I looked at her bio. I didn't see other movies that I knew. Other movies or other anything.
I can't recall her from anything specifically.
The one actor that stuck out on my mind and always sticks out on my mind is the Dr. Stewart. Always does, because I love his accent and I love his face. And then I Googled who he was. And I just looked at Shawn and went, classic Loki. He's classic Loki. I died because you don't
For you Marvel fans.
You don't think these people are that old because you're like, wait a minute, look at that actor in Loki and look at fucking Keanu Reeves.
Some age gracefully.
I was like, damn, Keanu is fine fucking wine. And people will put a picture of Keanu now compared to this movie and they're like, how is this man he hasn't aged that much. It's great. It's like Paul Rudd. You could do the same thing. 90s Paul Rudd, now Paul Rudd. It's like, I'm sorry, are you a fucking vampire? You know?
The look of Elder Dracula was pretty cool.
I like that, like, he hides as this older kind of, I've already given up, I'll never find this, and then he becomes his younger self once he knows that Mina exists.
Yeah.
It's kind of beautifully poetic.
Well, that elder form, it almost reminds me of, like, English royalty. Like, you know how they wore, like, the big wigs?
Yeah.
Like, that's the vibe I get.
Like, it's an old school kind of like, oh, I'm still in the 1600s. Like,
Almost,
I've never gotten out of it.
Almost like the queens back then. They used to have those big hair.
Oh, yeah, the big hair with the ruffle. Like, Lucy's wedding dress, I hate it. That is the fucking
hideous.
ugliest thing. But it reminds you of something Queen Elizabeth would have worn. Like, Queen Elizabeth I, I don't remember. Kate Blanchett plays her in those movies.
Yeah.
That's how I can, distinguish her. But she wears those big collars and those big dresses with these big statements. And she had the fire red hair. And it just, that reminded me of that time period.
There's so much in the moments leading up to her, like, meeting Dracula for the first time. That's like, it's literally, they don't shy away from the foreboding nature of it. And then when you finally meet him, it's even worse. Like, they did one cool thing that I really, well, two cool things really, that I love every time I see this movie, and like I wish more films would do it. First of all, that Coppola made the choice to make Dracula's shadow an entity in and of itself.
What was that?
It literally operates independent of him.
It does.
And that is so cool.
And I'm really upset that Jonathan didn't call him out on his bullshit like, hey, you're over here. Why is this asshole over here? What is going on with this? Like, I know it's a different time where it's like, oh, your eyes are playing tricks on you. You're in an old castle with candles and stuff. But it's like, dude, clearly that man's over there and his shadow's over here and the candle's over here. What's going on?
And I also love that the way that Dracula literally glides through frames.
I want to know if there was a skateboard. Like, all right, Gary, stand on this skateboard. All right. Look menacing.
I mean, I assume he stepped on some kind of dolly truck.
And they just slowly wheeled him.
Slowly moved
Either
him,
that
yeah.
or he's just like that tiptoe fucking shit. Like,
but fucking hell, it looks so ethereal and incredible. Like, they did such a good job with it.
I have a note here that says, how do you think Winona felt lying in all of that blood in that opening sequence after he stabs the cross and the blood is just spurting and she had to lay there? They had to do that in one take because that would have ruined that gown.
That was probably like the Shining elevator type of deal.
Oh my God. There was, I even put, oh God, The Shining in the olden days. And of course, when Gary Oldman's character, Dracula, starts freaking out, I made a note going, oh, he's getting serious.
God damn it.
They're never going to stop.
Oh, Gary.
Gary.
I also really love the mystery surrounding Dracula throughout this whole depiction. Like, his origin is never truly explained in full.
Yeah.
It's almost like he called upon darkness and he like made himself into a vampire by sheer will.
And they use the history or the real history of Vlad the Impaler, which is a terrifying history.
Oh, God.
That man was fucking ruthless. But I also believe that man was trying his damnedest to protect his people from all of these crazy armies and invading armies, and they weren't that big. So whatever that man had to do to protect his country, I might be wrong. I only know very little about Vlad the Impaler. But it is so fucking cool how they weaved real historic stuff into it. And how, again, like, Underworld weaves some of that story. I was very confused about this one, though, because he's a vampire, but he can also turn into a wolf. He can also turn into, like, a were kind of beast.
So that essentially, I kind of just dismissed that under they kind of took liberties with Dracula's shape-shifting ability, and they kind of used, like, there are instances and versions of the story where he like can become wolf-like.
Yeah.
So I think that's where they were going with it. Plus they had his like monstrous bat form, and then like the mist,
which literally that monstrous bat form looks identical to the one that fucking Victor and the other Marcus look like in Underworld. I was like, dude.
Well, that they Underworld definitely took influence from this for that.
Which I think is cool because they took that, which was the kind of like slimy, kind of amazing, like pointy and sharp edges, and put it right into that.
Yeah.
I was like, that looks really, really sick. And I thought that was really cool because as much as I enjoy really roughly the first Underworld, the others wah, wah,
oh god,
they're terrible.
I want to kind of shout out the special effects of this movie.
Were they all practical?
All practical. The makeup designs and the fucking gore effects were top fucking
my god,
notch.
They were great. And you knew it was fake blood, but it was still like, because the colors, sometimes the colors were too bright and sometimes it was dark, but it was still, for that effect, it was still beautiful.
But that's the thing. This movie is set in such a dreary and drab time and setting that vibrancy really nails it.
Yeah, it's needed to have that bright vibrancy in order to pull attention to that part.
Yeah. And this movie, fucking Coppola, does not shy away from some horrific depictions. We're talking, you have Dracula's wives literally eating a baby, Lucy getting straight animalistically fucked by a werewolf
in what looks like, I know it's a maze, but it looks like a cemetery. It kind of looks kind of dreary and drab, like a cemetery. And he uses the draping cloth around Winona and the girl that played Lucy very lightly. Like, when they are in normal society and seen by people, they are corseted, but when they are like in the night, they are like very loose flowing clothing, very like, you can see the shapes of their body.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was purposeful too, to take you out of that dreary drab life thing and pull you into almost the fantasy and the romantic of what vampires can be. Which, vampires are scary fucking things, but there is something very seductive about them. And it's weird.
Yeah.
It is really weird.
The camera work in this movie fucking outdoes itself in the greatest ways. One of which we see a lot of shots of like POV, like Dracula POV, as he's like gliding up to the girl's doors at
And
night
backing out. And just like going across the city, and it's really
there's some debate about these shots
okay.
that I wholeheartedly agree with. A lot of people saw those back in '92 when this came out, and like Edgar Wright is actually he was interviewed saying it, but that when he first saw that, he was like, fucking Coppola nicked that from Evil Dead. How cheap. Which Coppola never would have come out to confirm it. I almost 100% believe he saw Evil Dead at some point and was like, oh, that's a neat little trick, and took it.
He's right. If he did, or if he accidentally was like, what if, and didn't even realize it, it's still a really cool POV.
Oh, it is.
I mean, he did smooth ones, and he did the sharp ones, kind of like Evil Dead does.
Yeah.
I've never fully seen Evil Dead, so... Oh, he just had an aneurysm.
Adding it to the list.
Yep. But I know what scene you're talking about, or scenes you're talking about. And honestly, I could see he would never admit it. He wouldn't.
No.
But I can kind of see where it comes from, and I agree. They are cool shots, and they're used constantly now, all the time. All filmmakers do them.
Yep. I also really, really enjoyed his use of compositing and overlays. Like for example, you see a lot of
The
shots
eyes in
early
the
on, like the
sky.
eyes in the sky, and he uses it to like enhance both Dracula's looming presence and like feelings, like the character's feelings. Like during the scene when Winona and Dracula are they're talking, and she has her back to him, but then you see like this faded image of his former love between them.
Yes, and then you see an image of her, of Elizabetha falling, and she's describing how it felt, how Elizabetha felt in that moment, because I believe she is the reincarnation of Elizabetha. And it's just, I thought they were cheesy. I didn't like some of them. I thought the eyes in the sky were corny, and I hated them. But I thought some of the overlays were really, like, necessary to the story.
Well, so overlays, like, especially compositing like that, was still fairly new at that time. Like, it wasn't utilized other than in small ways. So, like, I think Coppola was trying to take advantage of something that people weren't doing. And personally, I think he used them very artfully. Like, most people would have done it in all the wrong ways. And
True.
he was very, not subtle, but, like, he was careful with them.
One scene that I wasn't really sure of,
Which is?
I think, so I have, like, the scene where Jonathan's going through the woods on the horse and carriage. I wasn't too sure what the carriage driver should have been, and I wasn't too sure what the blue fire circle was supposed to be. Was that supposed to be like a protection circle, or was that person driving the cart, was that supposed to be like Dracula's like presence, like he was guiding him, like, because he can't really leave the castle grounds unless he has the earth.
I don't entirely know about the fire barrier thing. I kind of didn't think too much about it because it's felt very corny to me. Like anything I could think of was like, that's stupid. I don't think they would have meant that. But the carriage driver, I don't know what specifically he was supposed to be, but I felt like he was a really cool, eerie addition. Like the way they do that shot where he pulls up to Jonathan and he like reaches out and almost like lifts him into the carriage was like so ominous.
It was odd. It was ominous. I'm trying to like do a little research. It was commonly believed that on a certain night of the year, when all evil spirits were supposed to be unchecked, swayed, a blue flame is seen over any place where treasure has been concealed, but it is felt to be cursed. So the locals see it as a curse. And the coachman is Dracula in disguise. I don't know. I'd have to do a little more research. But because, Dracula can kind of like move and do stuff. So it would make sense that Dracula would meet him in person and then go through the blue flames as kind of like a force field or something. Like that wasn't too explained. Like, and then you see, like, at the end, Mina has those powers a little bit too, where she's calling on a force field to, like, cause the storm to get worse. Like, it was really weird. I think I'd have to read the book in order to understand what that was, but those were details that I was like, did that really have to be in the movie?
Yeah.
I feel like maybe he put them in there because it was in the book, but not necessarily they don't need to be there.
Something, and honestly, the force field and stuff might add into this, but like something I really felt with this movie on this viewing, at least, was like the way they depict Dracula is almost as if he is something older than time. Like he's almost like to most closely relate it, like an elder god.
I was gonna say like an old one.
Like,
yeah.
Even apparently during pre-production, Coppola came up with the idea that like being in his presence is like the laws of physics don't work correctly. So like that's why you'll have like his shadow operates independently and like rats run along the ceiling upside down and why liquid drips upward.
Okay, all right, that would explain like that perfume bottle or whatever that he opened and it was dripping up, and I was like, why would it do that?
So it's just like it makes him more than any vampire has ever been, and I think that honestly it just adds to the infamy of that character.
When Gary Oldman starts talking to Jonathan about everything, about stuff.
Yes.
And he gets angry. And all of a sudden, I can't understand what Gary Oldman is saying. Because he's so, like, loud with the accent. At one point, I'm like, I have no idea what he's saying during that line where he gets, like, passionately angry talking about, like, the past. They're talking, he says, oh, why do you need 10 houses in the area? And, like, why are you bringing dirt with you? Like, he's asking just normal questions that somebody would ask. And it's like, Dracula gets angry and passionate. I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying, Gary. You need to speak slowly. It's still the same passion, but speak slower, please. Like, I couldn't catch what he was saying in that scene.
I mean, I understand, like, Gary Oldman's an actor who gets very heavily into his roles. I think he used to be a method actor. I don't know if he still is. But, like, there's actually a good example of that in the, like, research here. But apparently he was, the night that they filmed the scene where he's with Jonathan in the, like, it's like the bedroom where he's like shaving.
Yeah, where he's shaving him, yeah.
Gary Oldman was drunk during filming that. And they actually shot that scene after midnight to kind of add to the mood of it.
Why was he drunk?
to get into that moment.
Oh, God. And then he shaved Keanu?
Yeah. I'm sure the razor was dull, but still.
Neo, watch your neck.
And did you know that Gary Oldman and Winona Ryder didn't get along during this movie?
I did not know that, no.
They, I don't know, apparently, like, during rehearsals, they were, like, really friendly with each other. And then, like, everybody came back from, like, the break period in between, and they just hated each other, and nobody knew why.
Did they date?
I don't know.
I mean, I think she was dating Johnny Depp at the time, wasn't she?
I don't know.
Oh, I need to see. Wikipedia usually has all that shit up, don't they?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. It's not always right. First of life. I didn't ask for you, Dracula. It looks like... Well, she was dating him in 1990.
Well, maybe something happened.
And then she dated a band member from Soul Asylum. She dated Matt Damon? I'm sorry, you dated Matt Damon? What? I'm getting off topic. I gotta read that. But maybe they just had some sort of spat, like falling out. But I will say, if they didn't get along, their sexual chemistry
was fucking palpable.
It makes you...
Damn.
It was so good. It makes me uncomfortable to watch them during that scene. Because I sit there and I'm like, what is this feeling I'm having? I'm like, I am a grown woman. This should not get my engine started. I don't understand. There is proof that no matter what era, girls always talk about sex.
Yeah, no shit.
They were literally reading almost what essentially is the Kama Sutra.
Basically.
And giggling. And there's one scene where they're looking at a man and a woman and he's doing her doggy style and they're like, how does this even work? You bend over and he shoves it in you. Like, it's just as the picture shows you there, Mina. Like,
oh, God.
Oh, my God. Oh, and when Lucy says, I'm 20, I'm practically an old hag. Bitch, I'm 36, I ain't married.
Yeah, but...
I didn't spike. I'm gonna back that up.
You have to take into account that...
It's 1890.
Yeah.
It's the end of, like, the 1800s.
Most girls were married very young.
Oh, I haven't had a child, and I'm not wed, and I'm only 18. Like, come on.
Oh, there's a lot of great use of reverse cinematography in this movie.
Yeah, everything's inverted, right?
No,
Is
no,
that
no.
what I'm thinking?
So they essentially shoot things one way and then they play it in reverse.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff with, like, when you're transforming or when you're a vampire, they play it in reverse. Like Lucy getting back in her coffin.
Oh, I love
Or her,
that.
like, the red outfit where she's, like, being seduced by Dracula,
Yeah.
essentially. It's really, really cool. Or when they're rolling the fog in.
Yep.
Like, I feel like they're rolling it in backwards, or they're doing it in, like, reverse or something.
That
It's
fog,
weird.
I feel like the green fog you're talking
Yeah.
about, I feel like that had to be some type of a post work because it flows so well and
like,
it's
down and... But
they enhance it so perfectly with the green.
But it doesn't, to me, when you're watching this movie, it doesn't take me out of it. It doesn't look fake.
No, it doesn't look
looks
fake.
real.
It looks fantastic.
And if it's real, they must have used that ground stuff and then lit it properly or weirdly. Like, ooh, I would love to know.
This movie actually, like, now that I think about it, it stands as a perfect representation of how good practical, like, on-screen techniques work.
I miss practical.
Nothing,
I miss them.
Nothing looks bad in this movie.
Nothing.
Actually, one shot doesn't look great. And that's, two things don't look great.
Gotta find a third one.
The blue barrier.
Yeah, it looks
I thought that looks like shit.
Yeah.
And there's like one shot towards the end where they knock a guy off a carriage and he's falling down a cliff.
Oh, that's green screen.
Yeah, that looks so
Pure
bad.
green screen. But they also didn't think that would be high definition in an
No.
8K someday.
But like, that's it. Everything
it.
else looks fucking
Yeah,
fantastic.
nothing takes me out of it. Like, you're right. The only thing the blue flames kind of, because they kind of remind me of some sort of weird old Disney movie.
Yeah.
They take me out of it a little.
Or it's like
I'm
a video
why does
game
this look
graphic.
cheap? Yeah, it looks very cheap to me. Transcontinental Dracula, seducing your women.
Jesus.
And then we are introduced to Lucy's suitors. Classic Loki. Dude I don't know from Texas. And
Carrie always.
As You Wish. That man walks on the screen and I'm like, oh. I'm like, hello, Carrie.
And I retract my statement about Keanu Reeves' performance.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was unaware that he actually spoke up about his performance in this.
Uh-huh.
He wasn't happy with it. Because apparently he had been absolutely fucking exhausted from making several movies right on the heels of signing up for this.
Oh, shit.
So by the time he actually got into production on this, he said he tried to raise his energy for this role, but he just didn't have anything left.
But it makes the meekness of who Jonathan Harker is. I mean, he's easily seduced. It works. I just think, and I apologize, Keanu. You're amazing. You know, you're beautiful. Praise you, mister.
No, seriously, you're a good-looking man.
Just don't cut your beard.
I just want you to know
Don't
that.
cut your beard off ever again. Good
Oh,
God.
God.
No one cut their beard off.
Nobody
please.
wants to see that.
You
Put the beard back on your face.
You looked so old. I'm eager to see the new Bill and Ted. We have not seen it yet. We've done good. We don't
Oh,
know
my God.
spoilers yet.
I know nothing about it.
Nothing. We know nothing. But when I saw those post pictures, man, I was like, oh, why? John Wick, grow the beard back. I know it's back now, which I'm happy about.
Yes.
But, I mean, I feel bad if that's the case, that he's coming off the heels of other other movies, productions, and he's exhausted. But it does feed into the fact that I feel that Jonathan Harker is kind of a pussy. Kind of a meek kind of character. He doesn't have enough willpower to resist the ladies of the night, the devil's whores, as they were called. And he gets trapped easily. He escapes eventually. And then if he was exhausted during the production, after he escapes and he goes back, it kind of is good, because in a way, like, Jonathan's life essence was kind of sucked out of him. He looks older, he looks grayer, he looks duller.
Yes.
So it makes sense.
I think Jonathan is very much just a good person.
He is.
Good person, but a weak person.
He's just a plot device. He's not really anything but a
Basically.
plot device. He's a means to an end, and the end is Mina. So, one of the lines that I caught that Renfield screams is, "My salvation depends on it." I thought that was a cool line.
So, Anthony Hopkins wasn't originally the first choice.
Who was the first choice?
Van Helsing.
Was it Hugh Jackman?
No. Apparently, before he was brought on, the person in consideration was none other than Liam Neeson.
Ooh, no.
That would have been a very different Van Helsing.
That would have taken me away from it.
Okay.
I don't know who you are, but I will find you, and I will ruin your movie.
And apparently that blue flame effect
Yeah.
is the only optical effect in the film.
And it has to be a trick with mirrors.
Everything else
It's
is
practical.
practically done.
Ooh.
God fucking damn it.
God love it. And then we are introduced to young Gary Oldman. Or, dapper, long-haired Gary Oldman.
Dapper.
Oh, no one can play that part like him. I've tried to think of other men who could play that part. Nobody is a good looking. Like, he had to be like 30-something in this movie. Like maybe 30, 40. Oh.
That look for this look for Dracula in this movie is so different than every other incarnation that has ever been before it.
Yes.
Seeing him in this sleek, bearded, long hair look, like it's so, I don't know, it's alluring in a way.
Yeah.
There's something about it that's just, almost adds to the mystery. Like it adds to his mystique a little more. Not to mention Gary Oldman has piercing fucking eyes. God damn.
Sorry, Shawn. I have a little crush on 1992 Gary Oldman.
I don't blame you.
Fun fact.
Dude was hot.
Oh, still hot. Still, look at this man. Still hot.
Now he just wears it gracefully.
Oh, God. He was, as it looks like, about my age during this movie. He was born in 1958. So that
Shit.
would have put him in like mid-30s during this production.
Wow, he looked good for mid-30s.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Look at him as Sirius Black. You wouldn't think he's in his 50s in those movies.
No, that's true.
Dude.
He just looked very gaunt from weight loss.
I mean, Sirius has been through some shit. Seriously. Let's see. The one line... Okay, actually, I will save this for my favorite line. So I'm going to go back. When Jonathan Harkness... I'm sorry. I go to... Jonathan Harkness. I just go to Doctor Who. To Jack Harkness. He says in a letter, I feel I'm a prisoner. No shit, you're a prisoner. What part of this dude comes in and puts you in a carriage made you feel all warm and fucking fuzzy inside? I gotta go to Transylvania in the middle of nowhere to pick up a dude to sign paperwork. Just send him the fucking paperwork. Why did you need to go there? The other guy came back fucking Looney Tune.
Well, I don't know much about that era, but I'm pretty sure that you had to basically travel to most places to like establish trust. You really couldn't just go on people's word through letters.
I believe trust was broken when he entered the castle.
Well, yeah, but he didn't know that.
No. I have a series of from when the hose of the night. I have potion drips up, taking advantage of the man, boobies, that Keanu Reeves nipple, and oh my god, they ate a baby.
I think that nipple was fake.
I hope not. That's a hard standing nipple, man.
Keanu
got those like hat hanging nipples.
I think that was a fake nipple.
I would be pissed if that's a fake nipple.
Mostly because there was like no breathing in the chest.
Maybe they were like, stay still, she's gonna bite your nipple off.
Maybe. I don't know.
Gary Oldman's laugh in that one scene. You can't replicate that. It was perfect. How many takes do you think that took?
I don't know. Gary Oldman is pretty consistent.
Nails creepy. I mean, look at Lost in Space. Spiders. Like, we all hate that character. That is a movie that could have used some practical effects.
Yeah, no shit.
Let's not talk about that one yet.
There's a heavy focus on eyes in this movie.
There is, because eyes are the windows of the soul.
I also wonder if it's they're utilizing it to emphasize the deep connection, because like when you stare into somebody's eyes, it's like you're really connecting with them.
Like when you first start dating someone, how many times did you stare in their eyes versus now when you're staring in their eyes, you're just trying to see how long they'll blink, how long till they blink. Like there were moments where I was staring in your eyes going, oh my god, he has such pretty eyes. Now I look at him like, how long can we have connection? And then I'm just going to shit myself and watch you crack.
When you stare now, you just think, there's no light left in there.
Except I'm like Luke Skywalker. There's good in you, I know it.
You think that.
Mark Hamill. So the next scene after all that is like we're introduced to the girls and they're talking about this and the suitors. Flash forward to it starts raining and they're playing in the rain. After she gets a letter saying that Jonathan's going to be there for a month, and she's sad. Then they start playing in the rain. Then they start kissing.
So, all right, there was right around that part is it's actually right before then when she's at the party and you meet all the suitors.
Yes.
I actually made a note in here about that's like that happens right after he meets Dracula meets Jonathan for the first time.
Yes.
And realizes that Mina
is the reincarnation of Elizabetha. Yeah.
So that actually, to me, like, because during that party scene, you see like Dracula's shadow cast over the party at one point.
Okay, yeah,
and,
okay, right at the end where she's like
yeah,
it's almost like the breath gets
like,
taken
come
out
around
of her.
her.
Yeah.
That was like, all right, so Dracula has now turned his gaze to her, and he is watching over her. He is, his focus has shifted.
His influence is kind of steering her a little.
Which, yeah, the rain scene following that is that's where his influence is starting to take hold, because, like they say multiple times, he has control over the winds, and
why would that make the girls kiss? Like, I get it,
it's
gets a little like
influence.
perk points, but why would Dracula want that kind of, like, I'm asking for a friend. Like, I'm okay with the kissing scene, but it's more or less like I feel it's a little unnecessary.
Oh, it's absolutely
a tad
unnecessary.
Show me tits. Show me half-naked ladies. Like, there's a scene where Winona's in 2 very skimpy nightgowns, and you can see everything. By the way, girl, you got a nice body in this movie. All girls, definitely nice bodies. But that takes me out a little bit. I'm like, I wouldn't have put that. I would have put them dancing and playing, but the kiss kind of makes me go, I don't think Dracula's a pervert. I think Dracula needs to have, like, that seduction points, but that's a little...
It's definitely, like, it didn't have to go that far, but I definitely think the point of that was to
show the manipulation,
showcase his influence seeping into their lives, even though he is that far from them.
Yeah.
So, like, basically, like, every time you see Dracula coming near people, like when he's like coming to their rooms in their sleep, or like even when Winona meets him on the street,
and he just looks at her and says, "See me."
You see his influence and how it affects them, and it's definitely every time on a slightly arousal level. So, like, I think that was the initial influence into their lives.
How much can I manipulate this kind of... All right, okay. So then the next scene we see, like, the doctor's talking to Renfield. He's very interested in the case. And then he shoots himself up with morphine. So he's abusing morphine.
Yes, and I believe that was meant to be an attempt to understand the insane mind.
Okay.
Because he is talking about, like, wishing to tap into that level of brilliance. Because insanity is a level of brilliance.
It really is. Like, you have to be absolutely insane to kind of think. Like, Renfield still was very articulate. He was very, like, clear-minded, but in a elevated sort of dedication level to Dracula.
Yes.
And I believe that would be an explanation of Dracula's influence. It can, you know, steer you a certain way, but if you steer too far, you can break. Like, Dracula could have a breaking point in your mind.
Agreed.
Why does Lucy have a maze in her backyard?
Why the fuck not?
And I guess Gary Oldman fucks like an animal, huh? Damn.
You're not kidding.
Woo!
Ravenous beast.
Oh my god! You just hear Lucy start moaning, and all of a sudden you turn around going, Gary, you might want to shave.
The funniest, I laugh every time slightly to myself during that sequence. At first, it's like horrific to look
You're like,
at.
Oh god!
But then the moment he looks over
He's
to
like,
her,
mid thrust, like,
and he's like, "Don't look at me.
I'm an idiot."
Don't see me." It's so funny.
That one heartbreaking, like, just moment reminds me of the Rugrats where Stu's making pudding at 2 in the morning. Stu, why are you making pudding at 3 in the morning? I've lost control of my life. Just like the whole, he's just mid-thrust, like, shit, I forgot she lives here too. Like,
oh God,
it's so funny. And then the next scenes you see is them, like, Mina out in public in London. I want that top hat. That tall ass top hat with that gray suit. Like, man, that is, the costume design. The dresses are beautiful. The outfits, even the guys are wearing very detailed, ornate outfits.
yes.
Like, Jonathan wears the plain outfits. And Mina's outfits are colorful, but they get plainer, too.
Well, that's definitely because, like, Jonathan is just a simple, what is he, like a real estate broker?
He's a legal clerk, or he's a clerk for a lawyer's
He's a
office
clerk.
or something, yeah.
She's a teacher. The only reason they're in these elaborate settings is because they have rich friends.
Lucy's rich, and she mentions, like, oh, Jonathan doesn't like me hanging out with you because he thinks this is going to go to my head. And Lucy's like she said, we've been friends for so long that, you know, this whole thing doesn't bother me. Like, I love him for who he is.
Yeah.
Enter very rich Dracula, and her mind changes. Literally, because he
Money
manipulates.
always sways.
Money doesn't sway me. We are introduced to Abraham Van Helsing.
Dude, Van Helsing's arrival in this movie, like, not the first scene we see him. I mean, when he gets to the house, straight out of The Exorcist.
Oh my God. You expect the music to start playing, and then a sudden streetlight just show up.
I can't not see it.
It's so funny. Was Anthony Hopkins in The Exorcist?
No.
Okay. And then Carrie Ellis says a line. It's not my favorite because my favorite has a little more meaning, but he says this line and I giggled. Please do anything you can for Lucy. I'll spare no expense. Like, oh my God, I laughed, and you watched me type it into my phone and was like,
Carrie, I don't know if you'll ever see this, but if you do, I want to be real with you for a minute. I don't know if anybody's ever said this to you in your life, but if I ever do meet you, I'm going to look you dead in the eyes, like I am right now, and I'm just going to tell you, now you're John Hammond.
you're not gonna do the famous, like, say it, Wesley, as you wish. No. Do you know what I want him to tell me if I ever were to meet him? Is when he's in Men in Tights and he's sitting there going, I lost? Wait a minute. I lose? Like, I lose my shit when I see that, because that movie, Men in Tights, is amazing.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's in the wheelhouse. I think that's a 90s movie. I'm sorry. I'm itching my eye. It's, like, really bothering me.
Sorry.
This is good for the camera, guys, right? All right, that's good. Then I have a lot of notes. So then we get to, like, Lucy kind of, like, succumbing to the darkness. She's bit Dracula. Dracula's bit her. They've sucked each other's blood. They fucked. You know, typical Tuesday.
I don't think they've fucked. Did they?
Lucy?
Oh,
Dracula?
I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the other one.
No, Mina. Mina was thinking about him and touching herself.
Oh,
at
she's
points.
thinking about it.
Oh yeah.
Lucy, yes.
Yeah, oh,
for
no,
sure.
Lucy for sure. She's got a little Oldman DNA in her. Oldman, Mr. Oldman. Oh, I'm gonna get shot. Anyways, you have those sequences, and then you have where he meets Mina in the streets, and then there's the wolf, and she takes him to, like, almost like they're introducing moving pictures.
Yeah.
And there's, like, nude ladies and weird scenes, and I'm like, there's a lot of sex in this movie. There isn't undertones. It's in your face kind of situations, which I'm pretty appreciative that Francis Ford Coppola isn't like, oh no, we're gonna suggest it. No, he's like, titties, fucking seduction, like Dracula, vampires are. It's no fucking kidding with this shit.
He uses it to his advantage,
and I'm appreciate he's not afraid of it. Like, this movie was probably like really like that kind of thing in 92. Like,
this was shocking.
Yeah,
then.
this was really shocking, and these guys took a risk being in this movie.
Absolutely.
But nowadays, like, oh, this is a Tuesday.
But you also gotta think, like, this was shocking for that time, but for an actor, this is a fucking gold mine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this movie is so theatrical.
It is.
It allows you to not only flex the subtlety of film acting, but the large, bombastic nature of stage
There's
acting.
a lot of big presences, big, like, personalities. Even without them acting, like, they're Sir Anthony Hopkins, the guy that plays Dr. Stewart. I don't remember his name. I apologize. Like, Keanu Reeves and, you know, Carrie Ells. Like, these are big personalities. Like, huge personalities. Not just with the reputation of the films that they do, but even personally, they're big personalities. So I think that
Richard E. Grant.
That's
his name.
Well, I have it stuck in my head that he's on screen going, we need to stay on schedule. I cannot remember what that is from. Is that Doctor Who? I know he was in Doctor Who.
I don't know.
We need to stay on schedule. Like, I remember that line so, like, vividly. Oh, he's in a lot. Oh my god. Spice World. It was from Spice World. He plays their manager for the Spice Girls in that movie.
Jesus.
And Shawn. Oh, honey. That's 1997.
Mother of God.
Oh. He was also in Little Vampire. The Little Vampire. He's done a lot of weird stuff. He's done a lot of crazy ass shit.
You're going down a rabbit hole.
I am going down a rabbit hole. Help me.
Come back.
No.
Go back to your notes.
He was in Doctor Who. Okay, he was in Doctor Who. My notes. Oh, yes, my notes. Because the next note in my thing is... Damn, Lucy feeling herself. That's my next note. She's doing a lot of, like... Oh, like...
Yeah, we literally can't emphasize enough
cannot...
the sexual nature of this movie.
Like... The differences between pain and pleasure in this movie are it's a very thin line. Like, super, it's transparent as, like, cling wrap. Like, holy shit. She took the men of two blood. Oh my god. The blood of two men. Words, Leah. As a transfusion. Like, and it still wasn't helping her. So no matter what, like, there was no saving Lucy. No. She was gone.
I think they also got to her too late.
Yeah. I think the only way they would have been able to really save her is if they realized something was wrong a little sooner. But she was doing her best to kind of hide that. Yeah. And kind of live pretty plainly. My next note is absent. So Mina and Dracula are at, like, a party. I don't know whether it's like
I feel
out
like
on
that
the
was
town
just like
a restaurant or something.
I think it was some kind of, like, bar, but like a private room.
Yeah, and they're having absinthe, and you can see she's going just to kind of like, oh, I'm gonna entertain him. I'm just gonna go. I'm curious, and then she full on has like a brain melt, and she, like, realizes that she is in love with him, and she knows things, and she doesn't understand, and it's like, how much of this was the absinthe trip?
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of felt a little bit like they used absinthe as like a metaphor, not a metaphor, but like all right, so, like, as if absinthe, like, transcends normal alcohol, which a lot of people think it does, and it, like, that was what, like, helped her past self slipped
like
back.
broke barriers.
Yeah, like it was interesting.
Like when she was sitting there, she was like, "Oh, okay," and then all of a sudden she's having like these moments where he's like, "Oh, let me tell you about where I live," and then she describes where he lives, and I'm like, did her mind just go and shatter? Like that's what I feel like the absence did. It broke that last wall that he couldn't break down himself through like the sensing and stuff.
Maybe that was Coppola's little 2 cents about alcohol.
And then they just, if they hated each other on set,
You couldn't
tell because I straight thought he was gonna start fucking her right there. that their energy is palpable. And I do think enemies to lovers, it's a trope in books, in shows, everything. It's a strong trope. And I feel like when two actors kind of have a little bit of like tension, it kind of helps them out. Like, yeah, we don't like each other, but what if kind
it's
of
like they use it
thing.
And shift it to the other dynamic.
Yeah, like, oh, I hate you so much that passionate feeling is going to translate differently when we're doing a scene.
Yeah.
Like, if they didn't like each other, like, where they were shaking and, like, getting really close and, like, it helped the feeling of it. Which, if they got really close and maybe had a conversation about, we have to... Like, what if they had a conversation where it's like, okay, we can't get along. We have to, like, no, we can't get along. It'll make the chemistry better.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they drove a wedge between themselves so that
Purposely.
like it wasn't weird. So it's like not like, oh, I have to like
They had
make
to get
out with my
some
friend.
passionate scenes. Like
Yeah.
that ending scene between them. Like, I can imagine it was just probably Francis Ford Coppola and a couple other people with them because she's practically got a sheer sheet of cloth between her and him, and he's got to be like shirtless and sexy and sweaty and oh, sorry, my mind went somewhere. Also, my other note is how pent up were people in the 1890s? How pent up? And this is England in the 1890s. Like,
well, I mean, it would probably be even worse, but like, you gotta think back then, everyone essentially saved themselves for marriage, or they were supposed to.
Yeah.
They were like, that was how things were done. Most people, I'm sure, didn't.
yeah,
but
of course.
that you were what's the word I'm searching for? You were expected
Yeah.
to be saved for marriage.
If you weren't unclean, you weren't worthy kind of thing, which
you were
man,
a whore.
oh man. I'd rather be a whore. So Van Helsing says this line to Mina when he first meets her. But Dracula has said it too. The light of all lights. That's what he says to her, but he says that to me. Dracula says that to Mina in one of their meetings too, as well. So it's almost like Dracula and Van Helsing thinks like Dracula. He's like, oh, okay, I know why he likes you, kind of thing.
Well, I mean, if you go based off of that Van Helsing's distant relative was there when Dracula was born,
Yeah.
You'd have to take into account that like that probably came from his family line, that turn of phrase, and it's
true.
probably been passed down. So Dracula would know it, being so close to that family lineage, but Van Helsing would have learned it through
his ancestors.
teaching.
That would make sense too. Let's see.
I love that there's a connection there too.
Yeah.
Like that it's possible that their family lines had known each other for generations.
And his great decades, centuries old relative was like, no, study this man, find a way to defeat this man. And it was finally Abraham Van Helsing who was able to do it.
That's really cool.
Lucy's tits are always out. Like, I always have that. Her boobs are always out. But I think she was dead by then. No, she wasn't dead yet.
No.
He says to the guys that the devil's concubine, the bitches of the devil, the whores of darkness, which I don't quite understand why Dracula has women or wives. I mean, I know there's 3 wives of Dracula. There's always been 3 women.
That's always been a part of the lore.
And it's kind of funny because you just played Resident Evil Village. And even Lady D has 3 daughters. And they're 3 differently distinct looking daughters.
Right.
So even that, where people associate them as vampires, and we know they're not. That has to do with the game. But even that influence is there are 3 daughters of darkness.
Yeah.
Which always is like a theme in any kind of Dracula-esque story, which I don't know the legend behind it, but I think it's still kind of cool.
It is really cool. It's interesting. Like, I honestly think it comes from, like, Dracula essentially luring in companionship.
Like, he's never been able to find his
love.
Elizabetha again.
So he fills
he's
the
replacing
void.
it with... But even they said, like, oh, will you be feeding us? You know, will you not love us? You'll never fall in love. You'll never find love. And he's like, no, I found it.
Yeah.
Like, fuck you girls, I found it kind of thing. But Van Helsing also says, my strange friend. I wrote that down. I forgot who he says that to. At one point, I wrote this down. I said, I didn't know Palpatine was in this film. I forget which scene it was. I wrote it down thinking, I'm like, yes, no, that's gonna be great. When he's in the window looking at Lucy while she's finishing turning, and then all of a sudden the whole room explodes in blood because he's attacking her as like a wolf form.
Yeah.
And it's just him at the window, and it's like, I expect him to go, I am the Senate, like, because he's got the hood on and shit. The glass coffin was interesting.
Everything is a visual choice in this movie.
It's
like,
stunningly beautiful.
Gorgeous.
That's another one of my favorite lines. I'm gonna skip that one. Once Jonathan escapes, you can see that Jonathan is just gaunt. His hair is gray.
Yep.
He's skinny. He looks like he's on death's door.
He's been through the fucking mill.
Yep. He's been through the ringer. But yet, and Van Helsing says this to him to his face. He's like, "Oh, when you were with the Daughters of Darkness and doing your infidelities, like, he didn't choose this. He was seduced by darkness, basically."
Right.
So I think infidelity is the wrong word.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But Van Helsing, especially in this depiction,
He's sharp and to the fucking point.
He's very tactless.
Yes. No tact. None.
Yeah.
My next lines are, wow, that's an angry Wesley. Oh, she threw up blood. Oh, we beheaded her, then we ate ham. Is it just rude? I don't understand the throwing up blood, but it goes back to the Exorcist thing.
Oh, god damn it.
It really does. Like, his entrance was Exorcist-like, and then she pukes blood on him. Like, oh my god. Renfield, like, knowing that Renfield is just fucking screaming this whole movie. Master!
Literally every time you see him.
Every time you see him. Like, Renfield has no purpose but to be, dude, you are annoying, shut up. Like,
I do really love that they kept the element of him eating bugs.
Yes.
That has always been there, and I'm so glad it was at least
it's still there, like, to this
touched
day.
on.
Once Dracula is defeated, do you think Renfield's sitting there going, oh god, I've been eating bugs, I'm here, help me, get me out, I'm done.
I don't know if that, like, comes from insanity or what that's all about. I don't know enough about the Dracula lore specifically.
Yeah. So we get to the very seductive scene. The doctor tells Mina, oh, you'll be safe in my office. How safe is she with you with a fucking open window facing the Abbey? I'm sorry. They make sure she's in place with bars and windows and everything, and the fucking window is just wide open out to the Abbey.
They don't make very smart choices throughout any of this.
None of them make good choices. And then my next comment is, oh wow, he did. Oh,
Who
Renfield.
did?
when he
Oh.
kills Renfield. Like, he just fucking
Just
boom,
throws
boom,
him into
boom.
the bars.
Like, holy hell. Kind of like something out of, like, a fucking horror movie.
Well, it is a horror movie.
I thought that this scene between the two of them was very passionate, very heartbreaking. Because not only does he, like, want her to be with him, he breaks down and says, I'm Dracula. I'm the darkness. Like, I'm dead. Like, there's no life in my body. Like, I want to be with you, but I don't want you to do this.
Yeah.
And she freaks out on him, like, you took Lucy away. You caused Lucy to die. But then she's like, but I still love you. I still want to be with you. And it's weird because you can see the old Mina kind of peek through and trying to break it. But that his seduction is so strong that even he's like, I don't want to do this anymore. He's trying to push her away, and it's just,
And she won't let
his
him.
power is too strong at that point. Like, he has a breaking point where he's like, I can't do this. I shouldn't do this. And she's like, too bad. Like, even if he has like a little bit of a redemption there, it's gone because he's so powerful. And then he just kind of is like, all right, well, if you want this, here's my tit, go ahead, like, start sucking blood or whatever. I know he rips himself open like here, but
that
it's
scene was very like powerful performances.
powerful and uncomfortable because it gets very erotic too.
Yeah.
That, like, if they hated each other on set, man, you wouldn't have known it.
It was very convincing.
Oh, they good. I even put, like, this is making me very uncomfortable. And that's when I realized this movie is very good, but very long. This
It's
movie's
very long.
Like, all the pieces are necessary to develop characters and to, like, go, but there just feels like some parts are a little too long. Like, not necessarily too long, but they could have shaved a couple of seconds on some scenes to make it a little shorter. But I believe Francis Ford Coppola is a director that does things with intention. So he intentionally pushes the uncomfortable scenes. He intentionally pushes the character development. So you get a better story overall.
This is the filmmaker we're talking about that brought you the entire Godfather trilogy.
I have never seen any of The Godfather.
The long ass movies.
Yeah.
Like,
Like, I've heard the famous horse head in the bed.
yeah.
Like, that just made me go, I don't think I'll watch these movies.
You can't go against the family, Leah.
Oh, God. I'm going to go against the family just so you stop that line.
I'm never gonna stop. It's too funny.
Gonna stop her. Never gonna stop. And then the final scene is just, like, kind of crazy. They're trying to beat Dracula back to Transylvania. So he's on a ship, and they're thwarting him at every pass because, kind of like Harry and Voldemort, he can read Mina's mind. And whatever they're saying around Mina, she can, not without trying, she can just display what's going on. Sort of like how Voldemort and Harry had that connection. Like, Voldemort didn't really understand it, but by the end he knew that, what Harry was doing, so he can kind of be a step ahead of him. And I think that's kind of cool that there was a little bit of drama with that. But when they were like, oh, if we go by train, the boat, that boat would have taken a month or two to get there. It would have been a couple days, it would have been a couple months. So I'm kind of, like, surprised, but like you said, he can control the elements. So he could have pushed the boat along a little more, or caused, like, problems with, like, the train and stuff. But it's just, that kind of takes me out of it a little bit, because I think logistically, in shipping and, like, logistics stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
like, that would have taken months. So, like, that doesn't make sense. Even back then, that would have taken even longer. But I digress, and I ramble. What other notes do I have? Mina becomes a decoy. So basically, like, she's at the point where she's very close to turning. Like, she's got maybe, a day until she's fully a vampire and they
Yeah.
can't get her back. She's already showing signs of pushing Van Helsing away, and, like, the Daughters of Darkness are trying to, like, seduce Van Helsing and kind of get him away to get her. And then there's the whole chase thing, which, that's kind of, it's a lot.
Yes,
I wish
it's
that
big action cluttered scene.
very cluttered. I wish it was a little bit longer and a little bit more thought out.
Yeah.
I wish they would have taken out some of the train sequences. Like, they could have narrated it without showing us some of them, and then made that last sequence a little bit longer.
Yes.
But as you know, there's a fight. The Texan dies. Poor Texan, poor Quincy. But at least classic Loki and Wesley get out alive.
Yes.
Van Helsing is done, but Mina has to be the one that finishes off Dracula herself. And then he realizes that nope, it's my time to go. You're gonna keep living. So by the end, she plunges the knife deeper and cuts his head off. End. We don't know what happens next.
So, there's actually something that stood out to me about those last few moments there. I don't know how much that I'm reading into this or anything like that, but so you have Dracula's been stabbed essentially in the heart. He's dying.
Yeah.
They retreat into the church where it all started, and they're forced with that moment where he basically begs her to let him die and find peace. So she plunges what was it, a sword?
Yeah, it looked like a sword.
Deep, fully into his heart, and it's the last killing blow. And you see this moment where as he falls dead, essentially, so he's laying there and his head kind of drops back, and then you see this light come over his eyes.
Yep.
And he looks upward and dies that way. I actually learned this from another film altogether, but there's actually a circle of belief.
Okay.
I think it's technically in Christianity. It's certain branches of it that look signifies it's essentially the sign of the martyr.
Okay.
Which is when you die under such an extreme circumstance and you essentially are graced to stare into the face of God as you die. And there's another movie that we'll never get to because it falls out of the wheelhouse, but the movie's called Martyrs. I saw it back when I was right after high school, I think, and it essentially becomes all about that idea, and that movie's about a group of people that's searching for that, and it's I don't know if that's what Coppola was going for there, but that's how I read it. As when he died, I don't know how to explain it. It's really hard, but he was met with the presence of God, an affirmation that everything he went against was real.
Okay.
And because throughout the whole movie, he even says to,
"Where is God now?" kind of thing, he says.
He says to Jonathan right when he sees the cross for the first time. He's like, "Don't put your faith in such trinkets," because he doesn't believe in it.
Yeah.
And I took that last moment as God showed himself to him to prove him wrong.
I saw it differently. I thought that at that moment, that when she plunged the dagger deeper into his heart and he was dying, she was no longer the reincarnation of Elizabetha. She was the one staring down at him, pulling him towards heaven. That's what I thought.
That still falls into it, though.
It does still fall into it, where God or Jesus essentially could show the form or be like, show your form to him and welcome him back into my graces or something.
Even if it wasn't God themselves, her revealing herself to him would be affirmation that he was wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's a powerful final message.
Yeah.
And I could definitely see Coppola doing that.
The storytelling that Coppola does in other movies, definitely to where this is kind of like, this is the extreme of going against God and then coming back to God, like, let me go, let me have inner peace. God's like, all right, you don't have to be a cursed being anymore, come on up, that kind of thing. But yeah.
And I want to I want to back this up by saying that, like, I don't think that it was meant in a spiteful way. Like, God wasn't saying, hey, fuck you, I'm real.
Like fuck you, kid.
To anybody that actually has faith in any of this, I personally see that as God not just he's confirming his presence, but forgiving him.
Yeah.
Even though he has done unspeakable things.
I also see it as God going, you done being a little shit now? Come on. Come up. It's okay. I'm done being pissed at you. Come on up. That's what I see it as. But I'm a little, like...
Look, I don't put faith or stock in any of that.
No.
But I do think that it's an act of mercy. It's an act of forgiveness, which if all of these religious people are correct, like, God is supposed to be all forgiving. And that definitely comes through.
Even, fucking the devil himself, or one of the devils of the world, could be forgiven.
Yeah.
In God's eyes when he's dying and goes up to the pearly gates of heaven or whatever. I don't know. Anyways, backtrack to the end of it. And then that is it. We don't know what happens to... Well, she lobs his head off. So she does still, like, don't trust this, She still takes his head off, which is a very vampire thing to do.
Well, it's the rules that Van Helsing set in place there. Stab him in the heart and chop off the head.
Yep. So, yeah. That is...
Any other thoughts before we get into the closing questions?
No, I've definitely covered a lot of my comments.
Then what are your overall thoughts of the film?
This film is a great film. It is not an amazing film, because it does have its flaws. It could be I say it all the time, could be the sign of the times. Could be because we have films kind of on the same, like, wavelength that are much better. For the time, this was a beautiful movie. Like cinematography, costumes, the colors, gorgeous. The story, I've never delved deeper into the book. I know it's like diary entries throughout the whole thing. It's not a traditional storytelling, so what Francis Ford Coppola did with it in the beginning, it is the diaries and then fades more into kind of like a narration of it. It's a good movie. It's a great movie. It's not amazing. It has its flaws, but still pretty great.
All right. So for me personally, this movie, it hasn't always sat well.
Yeah.
As I mentioned before, like it never really hit me until this viewing. Like, this is a very strong narrative effort. I think Coppola created something that was, all intents and purposes, it's a visual masterpiece. He crafted something that's not just your standard Dracula adaptation. This is more like a stage play than a film. The performances throughout from basically everyone are fantastic. He pushed the envelope in terms of content, practical effects, visual effects. He created something that I don't think is ever going to not be impressive for the time. sure, you could make things look better today, but I think with practicals at that time, he outdid himself. Favorites.
My favorite lines are Dracula says, children of the night, what sweet music they make. I think that's very beautiful. That's very poetic. I myself am a huge fan of the noises that you hear at night. Like, down to, like, the rain, the wind blowing through the trees. You hear the peep toad. We get a lot of peep toads in the summer over here, so you hear that weird little croaky noise. We sometimes get cicadas, grasshoppers, you know. You hear those beautiful noises of the night, but in the film, it's the wolf howls, it's the crows cawing, it's the strange noises, it's the music that the night makes, and I think that's a beautiful, beautiful line. My other favorite line is Van Helsing looks at Lucy's fiance and says, looks at Dr. Stewart during the funeral for Lucy and says, "What? I just want to cut off her head and take out her heart." Like, I think that's a great line. Like, you're just like in the middle of her funeral going, "Well, she's right there. Why can't I cut her head off and just rip her heart out just here while she's wearing pure white and everybody's mourning her?" It's a very to the point Van Helsing line. Like, no, we got to get it done. Like, she's right here. What's stopping you? Little tact, man. Nah, tax for losers. That's a vampire. She's gonna suck all your blood. Let's go. Like, I love that line. Two very different lines. Like, one's a very beautiful meaning line, and the other one's like, she's right there. Why? Fine, fucking say goodbye. We'll do it later. We'll break into her fucking mausoleum and kill her. Like, my favorite scene, I'm such a pervert. My favorite scene will always be Lucy getting fucked in the maze. I just think it's like this beautiful, innocent, cute girl getting hammered by a monkey wolf dude. Just boom, boom, boom. Like, I am a pervert. Beautiful, wonderful movie, Francis Ford Coppola. I like the fucking scene. Like, I don't think that's what he had in mind. What about you, babe?
So, I only wrote down 2 favorite lines. One of which I share with you is the, no, not at all. I just want to cut off her head and cut out her heart.
Yep.
Like, that's absolutely hilarious.
Poetically beautiful.
The other is, I have crossed oceans of time to find you.
Oof.
Which actually apparently is, Gary Oldman said that when he first read the script, he described it as being worth doing so that he would have a chance to say that line.
Wow.
To someone.
And he delivers it so beautifully. He looks deep into her eyes and
powerful.
He's just like, I have crossed oceans of time to find you. It feels like a line you would hear at a wedding.
Yeah.
It really does. And as 2 people who've been to 2 weddings in a week and a half.
Jesus Christ.
I'm not mentally in a lovey-dovey mood, but that one made me go, I will fall in love with you, Gary Oldman. Please come here. Like, that, like, literally was like, ooh.
And I think my favorite scene in the whole movie is the, that last, sequence where he comes in through the window as mist, and then she drinks his blood.
Yeah.
That whole scene
it's powerful.
Is very strong and is like the best performances in the whole movie.
That would be my favorite if it didn't make me a little, like, uncomfortable. It still makes me uncomfortable.
See, but I like that it has that effect.
Yeah.
Like, it is that strong.
It is strong and is passionate, and it makes me goosebumpy uncomfortable. Like,
yeah.
Ooh, like...
It's really...
Like, you shouldn't be watching it.
No, but it's really good. And I think that's my favorite scene. Personally. Does it work?
Yes. Yeah. It's visually stunning, like you said. I don't know if there's a score to it because I'm too engrossed in the actual story and the visuals to even notice the music of this movie. If there is music, I apologize. But yes, it does. It does work. It's a period piece, so even if they did it now, it would still work. It would just be done with different actors and maybe more of a sharper tone. Maybe it might be more unsettling. Maybe it would delve deeper into showing a lot more of the seduction and the passion and the anger.
I personally think that this movie works. I don't agree that I'll cover that in the next question. Okay. But I think this film still works. Visually, emotionally, just narratively. I think this film is still as strong today as it was then.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as shocking because we've seen so much worse now.
Game of Thrones.
Fuck Game of Thrones, alright? But this... Yeah, I've seen darker versions of Dracula than this now, but this still hits home on it fires on all cylinders.
It does.
Does everything it should and more. Personally, I would if I were to describe this to somebody, and this bleeds into the next question, do you recommend it? I do. I absolutely would recommend this to anyone, and I would recommend it with the caveat of I would describe this to somebody as this is an illustration of what the Dracula story has always been at heart. A great and haunting tragedy.
I would recommend this to certain people. There are certain people that I wouldn't recommend this to. I feel like people would still be shocked by this today, but I also think that this is hauntingly beautiful. The Dracula story is very tragic. Even the silly adaptations of it, there's still a very deep story behind the Dracula legend. It's a heartbreaking legend that this person was just so betrayed by their faith, by their dedication, that they became a truly horrible monster. And I always recommend any iteration of Dracula, no matter what it is. Any iteration of vampires. Lately, a lot of vampire movies suck. There are a few vampire movies.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. There are a few that are very beautiful. And I feel like all vampire movies are very haunting. And they're very sad. Because, yes, you have this beautiful immortal life and you can love and experience things, but you'll never be complete. You'll never be whole. You will always watch the people around you die. You essentially are the undead, but you have to watch everything die around you. That is tragic. People have always said, oh, I'd love to, what's one thing you wish you could be? Oh, I wish I could be immortal. Absolutely not. I want to die someday. I never want to be stuck in this essential time loop of you have to watch, you have to make the friends, you have to go through the life, and then you have to watch them die, and you got to do it all over again. That's sad.
If I were to ever choose immortality, it would also have to come with the caveat that I could choose to end it at any time.
Oh yeah, no one could kill me, but I could kill myself at any time. I have an out.
There would have to be some kind of out. Which, vampirism does have outs.
It does. It just requires you to lose your head.
How would you make this today?
I'd be a lot more graphic. A lot more in your face. A lot more passion. A lot more sex. But a lot more anger. A lot more I would have Jonathan Harkness be an angry character. Know that he's been tricked. Try to go through all this. I would make Dracula a lot more emo. I think that's the best way. I don't have a word right now. It's kind of late. Sorry. So my brain's not firing the way it should with some words. But I would make him more tragic, more like, oh, my life, woe is me. So when he found Mina, it would be like the light in his life came back. Like the sparkle in his eyes came back. Things like that. Side note, the only vampire movie I would never recommend is Twilight. Any of the Twilights. No matter what. Those absolutely suck, pun intended. But I would remake this kind of the same way. I wouldn't take it out of the time period. I wouldn't make this modern. I mean, they tried to do it with Dracula 2000. And I was kind of like...
Listen, I don't want to talk about fucking Dracula 2000.
I feel like I have seen it. And I feel like somebody who I've watched in the not in the Labyrinth, I'm sorry, in Lord of the Rings or Hobbit is in it.
Probably.
But I'd do the same thing, same time period, same colors, but I'd put more passion and more heart into it.
So this is going to be another one that I personally wouldn't touch with a fucking 10-foot pole. Not for any reason other than the fact that the story of Dracula has been beaten to fucking death. And honestly, I'm just tired of it. Like, this movie is phenomenal. There are other iterations that are phenomenal. One that comes to mind is I think it's a Netflix series just called Dracula.
Oh, no.
It's very new, but I watched the first couple episodes of it, and it is fucking amazing. I wanted to finish it, never had time. But there's no need to keep telling this story. It's been told perfectly so many times, and imperfectly so many times. Fucking the Hammer films have beaten Dracula's legacy into the ground before we ever had a chance to see it.
Before we were even born.
It's something that just has been done to death, and like honestly, anybody that would try it today would only try to modernize it, and it would just be shitty.
Yeah.
I don't think it needs any more. Would you consider this exploitation or other?
No. No, it's more of a romantic horror, romantic thriller. If you put it in exploitation as vampirism, maybe, but that's kind of stretching it. This is a sad love story set in a time period. Like, no, I would not call this exploitation at all.
I completely agree. I wouldn't call this exploitation. This is a big budget version of a classic story.
It's exploitation of Dracula. This man's getting extorted. This legend.
It's this is an art piece through and through.
Yeah.
This is not.
This is a love letter to what filmmaking can achieve with a really big budget and a really creative mind.
Yes. I fully agree. And that is going to bring this discussion to its end. Mm-hmm. To its brutal, bloody, headless end. But don't go anywhere just yet. Please stay tuned for the coming attractions.
This morning, TDRS picked up an automated navigation beacon broadcasting at 2-minute intervals in Neptune orbit.
This is incredible. It's the Event Horizon. She's come back.
The Event Horizon is the culmination of a secret government project to create a spacecraft capable of faster-than-light flight. The ship doesn't really go faster than light. What it does is it creates a dimensional gateway that allows it to jump instantaneously from one point of the universe to another light years away.
Where's she been for the last 7 years, Doctor?
That's what we're here to find out.
After 7 years in deep space.
There were 18 people on board this ship when it disappeared. I want them all accounted for.
Opening outer door.
It came back, abandoned.
Any crew?
Negative. This place is a tomb.
But it didn't come back alone.
Captain Miller! I've got some problems here!
This ship has been beyond the boundaries of our universe. Who knows where it's been? And what it's brought back with it.
What is it? The ship is reacting to us, and the reactions are getting stronger.
What are you telling me? That this ship is alive?
I have such one thing to show you.
Oh my God!
It knows my secrets. It knows my fears.
Vacate. I want off this ship.
I can't leave.
She won't let you.
God help us.
Why, oh why, in the hell are we jumping into this next?
Because no one can hear you scream in space.
Infinite space, infinite terror.
Yes, fucking... And you know why I love this movie? Because I loved Sam Neill in Jurassic Park in 93. And this was on HBO one night when I was like 14 or 15. And I remember being scared out of my bloody fucking mind. And then, right before COVID hit, I bought the special edition from Scream Factory. This took a year to come in because they were trying to find the lost footage from the salt mines. They never did. All of it was too corrupt. I have watched all the features on it, but to this day, it has some of the worst special effects. And the acting in some of it is terrible. So I think it's perfect.
Event Horizon.
Event Horizon.
This one, I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna be fun to talk about, I think.
Oh, you're gonna rip this movie apart?
No.
No?
I've seen this movie countless times at this point. I actually quite enjoy it.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be a good next step.
Yeah.
In this podcast.
I mean, Lawrence Fishburne, Sam Neill, and then the blonde chick who I can't remember her name.
The one that I always like half think is Laura Dern and it's not Laura Dern.
Jolie Richardson?
Possibly.
Possibly.
I don't know.
I could be wrong.
But this is what I would consider Paul Anderson's only good film.
Ooh, see, I like Resident Evil. I love the whole series. I do. So I think this is his okay one. We have very different opinions about Resident Evil.
We're going to clash a little bit on this one, I think.
This one? Probably. Because you'll be surprised at what I really think of this movie now that I'm an adult. Because I watched this movie 20 years ago for the first time.
So if you haven't seen Event Horizon, I recommend giving it a watch before you listen to the next episode.
Oh my god, we're going to rip this apart. We really are. We're going to piece by piece dismantle this. And it's slightly cosmic horror Lovecraftian, which, I don't know if you can tell, is just kind of our thing.
Cosmic horror is one of my favorite horrors.
Yep.
But for more recommendations on films and coffees that you should check out, or if you want to see our movie collection or some fun behind the scenes stuff, if you want to chat with us, recommend us some movies, check us out and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Grindhouse Podcast. We're on Twitter at GrindhouseCast. You can find us on Discord where you can actually chat with Leah.
Hey.
because I don't use Discord.
I have Discord on all of my devices.
All the links for everything are down in the show notes. Listen to us and please give us a rating on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your morning fix. The ratings actually really do help. They let us know if you enjoy what we're doing, and they boost our, presence, get more people to listen. New episodes can be found first thing every Monday morning. If you're listening to the podcast and you want a more visual experience, subscribe to us on YouTube, where you can watch every single episode in its entirety with video.
And you can see us acting all stupid like.
If you like what we're doing here and you want to show us some support, all that information is going to be down in the show notes as well. Until next week, I'm Shawn.
I'm Leah.
Thank you for listening.